going on, guys? It is the new wave of sports that is sweeping the nation, where we're not just accurate but spot on. This is a brand new show that Spot On Sports is powering. We're bringing it to you, called The Facts Podcast, featuring
Yes.
myself, Tony Monk, and my man right here, Damien Jones, is a big political advocate. Make sure you catch his show, his podcast, the Damien Jones Podcast, and he'll give you guys a little bit more of that towards the end of this show here. He's joining us to talk the good world of sports when he's
Absolutely.
not busy saving the world in politics.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Honored to be with you.
it's an honor to have you, man. Definitely a force to be reckoned with, and everybody else will be still. They'll soon see that as well. The
Yeah.
biggest thing is why we're here for sports is for quarantine purposes, to be able to bring you guys some fresh new content
hmm
when you guys get tired of watching ESPN and the
Yeah.
rest of the syndicated shows we see on a daily. The biggest
Yeah.
news, though, that obviously ESPN did drop was the fact that tight end Rob Gronkowski had his rights traded to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from the New England Patriots for a 4th and 7th round draft pick. What's the first thing that comes to your head when you think about that?
The first thing that comes to my mind, Tony, is I think they had this thing planned out from the get-go. You know, when Gronk decided to retire and decided to, give his body a rest, and I think he deserved that opportunity to do so. But I think he and Brady had some things already. You know, Brady had already said that he knew in the beginning of the season, and probably before that was his last year in New England. And so
Right.
I'm excited about it. You know, I'm a huge Patriots fan. Let me throw, because we got 6 of them things, and so I'm excited. You know, listen, I'm still a Patriots fan, but those are my guys, and I will be watching them. I think I may hop on a plane and get down to Tampa to see one of the games in person, because I'm happy for Tom Brady. I'm happy for Rob Gronkowski for actually getting off the compound, if you will, and going to a place where they can have fun and let it fly and just let their personality show. So I'm excited about what happened. And I also think the Patriots got him for not the Patriots, but the
Buccaneers.
The Bucks got him for cheap. They got him for cheap. They didn't have to give up too much. I think Bill Belichick was just I'm over it. You know, y'all can have him or what have you, but I think it was a good opportunity for everybody involved.
Well, like I said earlier, they ruined my mock draft special that I was paying attention to
Right.
to tell me about Gronkowski. Do I like the deal? Yeah. As far as Tampa Bay, obviously you get a Super Bowl winning tight end, a tight end that's arguably, or at least in the conversation, one of the best in the league. Rob Gronkowski. Even in his short tenure. I think again, the only question I have is, what's his injury history like? Obviously, we know he's been through a multitude of those, and I do wonder about that. Even when a guy takes a year off, does his body still react the same through the rigorous training of that is the NFL? I think the biggest thing is that obviously Tom Brady gets a familiar weapon back. You pair that with Mike Evans and what you already have. And what you already have in Cameron Brate. And, all Bruce Arians has to do is sit back, smoke a cigar, and watch his team dismantle defenses over and over on a Sunday.
Bruce doesn't have to do nothing but just stand there, put his Kango on, and just let number 12 do what he does.
Indeed. And he's cheap. 1 year and $10 million left on his contract that is owed to Rob Gronkowski. And of course, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do pick that up. I am interested to see how they move forward in the NFL draft, answering maybe the running back question, sharing up some things on the offensive line. I do like the fact that they signed Jack Conklin, and I think that he will help keep Tom Brady afloat. But we'll get into the big reason that we're excited about with this podcast. Obviously, we were graced by ESPN. They finally, or at least they did it early because of quarantine issues. They dropped the Last Dance documentary, which we probably weren't even expecting to maybe next year. Obviously, we were given episodes 1 and 2, which hinted on Jordan's past as well as Scottie Pippen's contract issues. So let's bring it back to episode 1 and what we saw. What was your thoughts just watching the beginning of Jordan and you were there. You were actually there. You were actually able to see. And I think that's just great for history purposes, so people actually know that these facts can be backed up by Michael Jordan. Is this? Did they show you something new that you hadn't seen or didn't know about him?
Oh, that's a great question, Tony. I mean, like you mentioned, I was born in 1985, and so I was blessed to see Michael Jordan kind of move into his championship run, his
Mm-hmm.
growth. I was blessed to see LeBron and Kobe's full career so I've been blessed from a basketball standpoint. I'm a big basketball player, and so I studied Michael Jordan. I watched numerous hours of tape emulating him, walking like him, shooting like him, talking like him, all of those different things. And so there's not a lot about MJ. I mean, even the bookshelf in my house, I have the Jordan Rules book in my house because I love Michael Jordan. I read, I was a voracious reader as a kid because I learned read the stuff that you're interested in. And so I just read a lot of Michael Jordan books. So there's not a lot that you can get past me in terms of Mike. But what I did learn, are we talking about episode 1 or episode 2 right now?
Yeah, we'll go episode 1
Okay.
first, then we'll go episode 2.
Yeah. I mean, but I think what I did learn about Mike, well, I say what I did learn, but what I just saw more of and just excited me to the high heavens is just his voracious, intense, competitive fire, with his brothers, with his dad, with his mom, and those types of things, But you know what? No. I'll say this. Here's the biggest thing that really jumped out to me in terms of episode 1 when it comes to Michael Jordan is the discipline and the tutelage that he learned at the University of North Carolina from Dean Smith and Roy Williams, James Worthy, and just how he took his raw talent and was able to hone that and become a better fundamental player. And his confidence was extremely high. And he learned how to play the game the right way. And that helped him go into a Chicago Bulls situation that was chaotic, that was downtrodden, that was not used to winning. And he took that attitude and changed the whole city. So I think that's what probably jumped out at me, just what he learned at UNC and how that prepared him for the National Basketball Association.
And piggybacking off of that, I think for me, it was a guy I was learning of a player that really held himself accountable to be the best. And I think that is something that even you see that from a lot of the players in this generation, whether that be LeBron James or the late Kobe Bryant, that guys that really knew what it was to take on the mantle of being on the basketball face of Mount Rushmore, or being the best and the greatest at what you do. We can take it back to North Carolina as far as Jordan is concerned, and watching him want to up his game against the upperclassmen. Once practice is over, you're calling these guys out, trying to see where your game is. And just in a couple of weeks, you are one of the stars on this team, and the reason why this team is being so successful. You carry that into the Bulls program, and in just a short amount of time off one practice, they see, oh, this guy's the best. And by game 3, he's the face of the Bull, and he's the face of the Bulls, and now you end up being Rookie of the Year. And the fact that this guy came on so fast, the fact that people see his talents, and I want to say Larry Bird said this, and I know we're speaking episode 1, but I think I want to say he said it in episode 2. He said that wasn't Jordan. He said it was God disguised as Jordan.
Michael Jordan. Yeah.
and you don't hear that with any other NBA player than Michael Jordan. Yeah. And another person that happened to be watching, they said Jordan played the game in the air, the flying and the flash. We talked about this when we was planning the show, and
right.
I know one of the things we'll get into later is him and Scottie Pippen and weighing both players beside each other and how much credit Scottie Pippen deserves. Jordan was the flash before the detail. People pay.
I like that. I like that point that you make as you go into that.
Yeah. People, and we'll discuss that later, but people pay to see the flash. People pay to see LeBron James bully everyone in the paint. People pay to see Steph Curry shoot threes from half court. People pay to see Michael Jordan jump 6-7 feet in the air for a dunk, or score 63 points in a playoff game. Those are the things that everyone wanted to see, and you see the crowd, the people, humanity revolved around Michael Jordan, and he was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Since sliced bread, since water, since tires, since the Model T automobile. I mean,
I'm telling you, man.
Mike was that deal. And I think another thing that we noticed in episode 1 was just, and I think I'm 35. I know you're 26. Sorry to date you like that, brother. But,
no worries, no worries.
I wish I was still your age and still
I like to still feel you.
Yeah, and I wish I still had your hair, right? But I think the younger generations, your age and maybe younger, know about Michael Jordan, but you didn't see him, and you had to live it to know how huge he was. And this is in a time where it wasn't the social media scrutiny. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how Michael Jordan would have kind of matriculated through the social media era. He could hide. Steve Kerr made a great point. He could hide and get away from it a little bit. But Mike was larger than life. Mike surpassed Magic, surpassed Bird, surpassed Isaiah, Dr. J, all these guys. And Mike was just on a whole nother stratosphere as a basketball player, as a figure. And I mean, he just was just magnetic for so many different people. And so, I mean, this documentary is just a treat for us, Tony.
Definitely. Did your opinion on Jordan change? And again, I know you saw a lot of Jordan for sure.
Yeah,
and I think people walking before this podcast, before the documentary was aired, was, are we going to really see, and let's call it what it is, the type of jackass that everyone thought Michael Jordan is? Is that perception now different now that we're seeing Michael Jordan was really just focused on trying to be the best and actually winning? Does that opinion change now?
That's a great question, Tony. A little bit, okay. And I'll tell you why. From the standpoint, I like jackasses. I like a-holes. Resonates with me, and I'm somewhat. My wife calls me a jackass and an a-hole all the time, but she loves me. And for some reason she married me.
But man, that counts for something,
right? right. But like I said, I like the players who challenge their teammates and who hold nothing back in the name of winning. I like those who push their teammates against the wall and challenge them and push them to the limits to make sure we can get everything out of them. And so I saw more of that from Michael Jordan. And so I love that. I've never seen it per se, but I expected it from him because there had to be some brutal conversations going on to keep that level of winning going on for such a long time. So I expected that. What I did not like particularly, and I knew Michael was petty, and Michael's level of petty is what makes him so great. Mike even invited the guy who was put on the high school basketball team that he was cut from, that was picked above him. He invited that guy to his Hall of Fame speech. Mike is petty, man. But I didn't expect him to throw Scottie Pippen under the bus in some instances in this documentary that we saw. And he also was very petty with general manager Jerry Krause as well. Really made short man jokes with him and little stuff that could really dig at people. I don't know if that was arrogance. I don't know if that was, they had some type of tension going on, maybe so. But my opinion changed a little bit about Michael in terms of his level of petty, but overall, it doesn't change my opinion that he's the greatest basketball player that ever lived. And he needed some confrontational situations to continue that type of greatness.
And speaking of this greatness, obviously there are a lot of things that accumulate to why a player is so great. And why he wanted to win so much. What were those things? Or obviously the documentary gave us those, and it would continue to give us those. But what was your opinion on the things that drove Jordan to want to be such a winner?
Wow. And I want to get your thoughts on some of this stuff though too.
And no. Yeah, and I gotta remember that when I moderate. And right. Back off of that.
I know. That's why I said we both are moderators. So I'm gonna make sure I throw it back to you or what have you. But in terms of what did I think about his level of competitive fire was the question.
Yeah. It's just what driving him to win, and what was your perception on that?
Oh well, we know what I did learn, and this is kind of bleeds into episode 2 a little bit. What I did learn particularly, and that I didn't know, is that Michael loved his dad. Michael had a close relationship with his dad, and just like all of us, we want our father's approval, especially boys. We want our dad's approval, for whatever, around the house, look at me type deal. And Mike had several brothers and sisters. And so he had to claw and fight and battle and compete for that. But what he said, and I've never heard him say this before, and I think it was so clairvoyant and just so eye-opening, is that he was fighting and battling with his brother Larry for his father's attention. And that just jumped off the page at me. And just that little thing is what drove Michael to such maniacal levels of success. It's always that little thing that
he's human. He's human.
Yeah, right. That pushes us. Go ahead. What are you
gonna say? I think it shows us that emotional. Obviously, there are things that happen to come about that really drive us to want to prove people wrong or be successful in certain areas. And obviously, it showed the Michael Jordan that we saw in North Carolina, that you saw for sure in North Carolina, the Michael Jordan that you was able to see with the Bulls. And that was a culmination of what he wanted back in the day, to say things that they said I couldn't do. Obviously, getting cut from the basketball team, wanting to get better at North Carolina. Those people saying that he's the third pick, but we don't know if he's going to be the best. Those things, that it drives a man. A winner. It drives a winner insane. It drives a winner insane. Right.
Everybody's not cut out for it. If you ask me an overall theme, Tony, and I'm making sure I'm giving you facts. I'm giving you facts.
Right, go ahead.
Right. The theme that jumped out at me from episode 1, when you talk about Phil, when you talk about Scotty, when you talk about Mike, all of those guys, even Dennis Rodman, it was about an insatiable desire to prove yourself, to continue to prove yourself and never be complacent. You think about it. Mike, cut from the basketball team, competing with his brother. Jerry Krause wouldn't let him play so many minutes when he got hurt. They wouldn't pay him, and so forth and so on. Trying to get over the hump with the Pistons, all those different things. Phil Jackson, coming from a lowly coach out of like the G League and working his way up and trying to get respect and trying to get paid. Scottie Pippen, coming from being an equipment manager, all the way working his way up to the scholarship and being the number 5 pick in the draft. Dennis Rodman, having some issues growing up as a young man, finding his identity and finding, a team in the Bad Boys that wanted him, and then find his way on the Bulls. It was about proving yourself and overcoming obstacles. And I think that's a drive that certain people have. Everybody doesn't have it.
Everybody doesn't have it.
And Mike's dad said it. You want to get Michael to do something, tell him he can't. And he's going to do everything he can to prove you wrong. But go ahead.
That's what made the Jordan that we know of or did know of during that time. I think for him, knowing that where the Bulls came from, he said it himself. I promised that we were going to go to the playoffs every year. In the time, during the playoffs when they went against the Celtics, he said that that they need to let them loose. They need to make sure that they need to do whatever they need to do. In the last the last 13 seconds of the game before the playoffs, when he said, "Look, man, put me in," and of course, Cross is saying, you'll get fired if you leave him in any time past 14 minutes. But it's that mentality that drives a man up the wall to let him know I cannot lose when the stakes are where they are, when the stakes are so high. Even in the most meaningless game, which is the first game of the season or the beginning of the year, Jordan
every game matters. Every game.
Jordan said, God, when guys are ready to just take the untie the laces and take it home and just get ready for the next game, the second one. He says, "No, we can win this game here. We can win this game here," and I think it's just shed so much of a different light on the type of player Jordan. And look, and we said this in planning for the show. The greatest people are savages.
Yes.
The greatest. You have to be a savage. You have to be willing to put your foot on others' necks when others aren't willing to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that, obviously we have to talk about the man that kind of started all of this, or at least pulled the triggers on a lot of these moves. GM Jerry
Yeah.
Cross,
Yeah. Yeah.
and a lot of stories or a lot of different opinions can arise about him. I saw a little joke on Twitter, and there was attending that you remember Space Jam and the little alien boss guy. It was
Yeah.
like Cross looked like that guy, and Jordan may have been saying that that's him,
Right.
and how they lived on Moron Mountain.
Right.
But I guess the question that we should probably answer for the viewers is: was Jerry Cross a good GM? And I'm gonna actually take this. I'm gonna take this.
I was gonna say I'm
first,
gonna
'cause I
throw it
had some
back at
things
you
about
first.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had some things about him. My answer is yes,
Okay.
and I say this because I think GMs obviously these are the things that he covered. He got the players.
Yes.
He made sure the Bulls was box office.
Yes.
You saw that ticket. You saw that ticket prices went up.
Went up. Yeah.
They got 6 championships.
Absolutely.
Job well done.
I will done.
Job well done. Was he the greatest person? No, he was not.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can look at that documentary and tell that just based off Scottie Pippen and the way Jordan felt about him. And luckily, episode 3 is going to be super exciting because we get to see what was going on during the era of the Bad Boy Pistons.
Right.
But Cross did everything as a general manager is supposed to do. Now, here are the things that you deal with when dealing with an executive like him.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get the money that you want.
Okay.
He feels like, if I can do this, then these players are just as disposable because at a time where, and we'll talk about it later on as far as Scottie Pippen's contract, where money in the salary cap wasn't such a huge thing, it's easier to say, well, we can get these guys to play for little of nothing, and we're able to win rings.
Mm-hmm.
Though Scottie wasn't drafted by the Bulls, and they made the trade for him during the draft, that's still a player that he went and grabbed.
Right.
You went and got Jordan. You went and did free agency moves to get Rodman. Steve Kerr already haven't been on that team, and the other bevy of players that had came through during that tenure of that 6 championship run. I have to hang my hat off the Cross.
Yeah.
Now I think Jordan saying when it came up to Phil Jackson, and this is where you don't always get the best personnel out of a person, if that makes sense. Cross being a bit of a jackass himself. When the limelight was shot on Phil Jackson and not so much of him, that became an issue. It became an issue of saying, and I told you about this, that's no different than how Jerry Jones was with Jimmy Johnson. When Jimmy Johnson was getting the credit for what Emmitt Smith and those guys were doing, and what and being able to win the championships, and the fact that the general manager isn't getting the praise for that, well, that sets an issue. And the issue is that I need to be getting all the credit for Phil Jackson. I need to get the credit for Jordan, Pippen, so on and so on. And the fact that he wasn't getting, the fact that he still got to set some booze, the jokes was being thrown his way. They said it. Little man syndrome, short man syndrome, the fat chubby kid from school that got bullied, that got made fun of, now being a face of one of the best top franchises in history, and no one's giving me the credit for it. That's an issue.
Yeah. Listen, I now this is one part of the documentary that I love, and listen, I have a very interesting mind in the way I view things and the way I see life, and in terms of business, I believe I really support and I love to learn about shrewd business people. I really do, and with Jerry Krause, he was so shrewd, but he was smart. And business persons are supposed to be shrewd. You're not supposed to give away all of the money. You're supposed to make sure your bottom line is tight, making sure your payroll is tight, and making sure your profits are high. And so I would agree with you, Tony, that Jerry Krause, regardless how Michael Jordan, how Scottie Pippen felt about him, how Phil Jackson felt about him, and maybe other players, he was a excellent GM. I think we both agree that he was an excellent GM. You know, when you think about, you know, like you mentioned, the way he put that roster together, you know, he was part of that team that brought in Michael Jordan, but then have a couple of years. I mean, when Michael Jordan got there, they had straight up scrubs on the team. Andrew
They
Corday,
did.
Charles
They
Oakley,
did.
Rod Hickman. I mean, guys that we can't even think of right now. I mean, it was just like Mike and some
The good
scrubs.
time gang. Yeah, and the good time gang.
Right, you got me, yeah. And so, you know, Mike did what he did, but you have to give Krause a lot of credit, you know. But here's the thing though. You know, sound like Skip right now. Here's the deal, Skip.
Here's the deal, Skip.
Right. But he did his job. He kept profits low, and all good things at some point come to an end. When you got greatness going on, when you got a Fortune 500 company that's doing well, there is some friction. I've read about in Amazon, their meetings among staff, they are intense. It is for some of the best teams I've been on and had the highest production. We were in each other's face. And so I think in order to get the most out of folks, you got to challenge people, and it may not be pretty and it may not feel good in the moment. But if everybody's goal is to win at a high level and produce and make sure the team is taken care of, then Jerry Krause did his job.
And look, you never have to be, when you're the owner, when you're the boss, your resume, or at least your track record, or at least everything that you've achieved up to this point, nowhere on there does it have to say, I have to be nice.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you have to, again, what you said, all good things have to come to an end, and you have to make business decisions. And business decisions aren't always the nicest thing to do. When it came to the point of whether you pay Scotty or not, or what Jordan did in the 14 minutes, and I can see Cross saying, I need my prized possession. And I'm not saying this is as he's just a possession to the franchise, but obviously all players, asset. I need my best asset needs to be around for as long as possible. Needs to be as fresh for as long as possible. Don't play this man for any more than 14 minutes. He shouldn't be playing at all, but we'll allow that because obviously the story with Mike going to go practice and started off doing 1-on-1 and 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 and all the way up to doing 5-on-5 for at least a week and a half before he actually told the team that he had actually been practicing. And Krause had every right to feel some type of way about that, depending on Jordan went to the coaches saying, "Look, play me," you know, doing it. And for Krause, it's, I pay you. Right. You know, I need to be able to make that decision saying whether or how much that you get to play or not you go behind my back to the coaches and saying, find a way to get me on the court. Now, and this is the friction between upper management and the player. The player is saying, I know what's gotten me to this point. Right. I know what's made me Michael Jordan of today, and what's made the Bulls a formidable team. Allow me to still do these things. For Jerry Krause, is I'm not going to allow you to tarnish or jeopardize this franchise because there's a little selfishness in that, right? We can say that, just trying to get back on the court. Jordan wanted to be the best player on the best team,
players want to play. Players want to play.
But Krause has to do his job. Krause has to do his job as a GM, and it looks bad, but 6 championships looks even better. Right. And that's what we can say. We draw the line there and say this man did his job.
Right. I mean, but like I said, players want to play, and you know, especially but another thing that you just kind of talked about it. Another theme that kind of jumped off at the page at me was just the friction that you see within corporations, companies, businesses between ownership, management, and the rank and file worker. You know, and that's what we saw. Like, and Mike was very clear about it. I like how Mike was just very blunt in interviews and things. He's like, hey, you know, Jerry Krause is our GM, but last time I checked, I haven't seen him do any layups, shoot any jump shots, dunk any basketballs. The fans come to see us. We are the product. We built this. And so, you know, as he mentioned in the beginning of the documentary, I didn't want anybody who's not on the floor to dictate what we did in terms of our performance on the basketball court. and he wanted to take all that power away from Jerry Krause as well. And so it's just normal friction that you see. But I think that's what makes this whole story more fascinating, given
Right.
the headline and that kind of cloud over their head that this thing is about to be over, given all the different dynamics, but they still were able to stay focused as a basketball club and